What happens when a television legend sits down for what should be a simple interview, but instead finds herself defending her entire career against accusations she never saw coming? What unfolded would go down as one of the most shocking moments in daytime television. Marla Gibbs, beloved for her roles as Florence Johnston on The Jeffersons and Mary Jenkins on 227, walked into the studio expecting a routine promotional interview. At 92, she thought she had seen it all. The producers had invited her to discuss her new memoir and reflect on her groundbreaking television career. Backstage, host Sherri Shepherd greeted her warmly, praising Marla's pioneering contributions. The two exchanged kind words before heading out to a buzzing studio audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the incomparable Marla Gibbs," Sherri announced. The audience erupted in applause. Marla waved gracefully, dressed in a powder blue blazer and pearls, her smile radiating the same warmth that had made her a household name. "Marla, it's such an honor to have you here," Sherri began. "Growing up watching The Jeffersons and 227, you were such an inspiration. You really paved the way for so many of us." "Thank you, sweetheart," Marla replied warmly. "It's wonderful to be here. I've been following your career too, and I'm proud of what you've accomplished." The interview started smoothly. Sherri asked about Marla's early days in Hollywood and the challenges of being a black actress in the 1970s. Marla recalled auditioning for The Jeffersons, never imagining Florence would become a cultural icon. "When I first read for that role, I thought it would just be a few episodes," Marla reflected. "But Florence had such spirit. She wasn't going to let anyone walk over her. I think people connected with that strength." Sherri nodded, but then leaned forward, her tone shifting. "Speaking of strength, I want to bring up something. There's been discussion lately about certain roles from that era and whether they perpetuated stereotypes. Don't you think Florence, in particular, played into harmful tropes about black women? The sassy maid, sharp tongue, always serving white families?" The audience quieted, sensing tension. Marla's posture stiffened slightly, though her voice remained calm. "Sherri, I think you're oversimplifying what Florence represented. She wasn't just a maid. She was a woman who spoke her mind, who had dignity, who never let anyone diminish her worth. She was three-dimensional, not a caricature." "But she was still serving a white family," Sherri pressed. "Don't you think that sends a problematic message, especially when there weren't many other portrayals of black women at the time?" Marla's jaw tightened. She had faced this question before, but Sherri's tone carried something sharper. "Florence was never subservient," Marla said firmly. "If you really watched the show, you'd see she was often the smartest person in the room. She had the best lines. She drove the comedy. That character opened doors." "Opened doors for whom?" Sherri shot back. "For network executives patting themselves on the back for inclusion? For white audiences laughing at the sassy black maid? Did it really challenge anything?" Marla's eyes narrowed. "I'm starting to wonder if you actually watch the shows you're criticizing. Florence was revolutionary. She was funny, smart, and human. She wasn't a stereotype, she was a fully realized character." "Revolutionary?" Sherri repeated skeptically. "A maid character was revolutionary?" That word, delivered so dismissively, seemed to strike Marla deeply. "You clearly don't understand what it was like back then," Marla replied, her composure cracking. "You don't know what we were up against, what we had to overcome, or what those roles meant to people who had never seen themselves represented before." "My grandmother was a domestic worker," Sherri said sharply. "My great-aunt cleaned white people's houses. So when I see Florence cracking jokes while literally cleaning up after the Jeffersons, it hits differently for me." "Then you should understand even better why Florence mattered," Marla countered. "Your grandmother, your great-aunt, they deserved to see themselves represented with humor and strength. That's what Florence was." "But was it really dignity?" Sherri pressed. "Or just making audiences comfortable with inequality? Laughing at the help instead of questioning why the help was necessary in the first place?" The audience sat in stunned silence. "You're putting today's lens on yesterday's reality," Marla said, her voice growing stronger. "We worked with what we had. We took roles that could have been one-dimensional and made them human. Florence wasn't comic relief, she was the heart of that show." "The heart of the show?" Sherri's tone dripped with disbelief. "With all due respect, you were the hired help making jokes about your employers. How is that the heart of anything except a system that kept black women in their place?" Marla stared at Sherri, her expression hardening. Sherri, have you actually watched full episodes of The Jeffersons recently? Or are you basing this on clips and other people's opinions? Sherri hesitated. I've seen enough to form an opinion. That's not what I asked, Marla pressed. Did you watch her storylines? The times Florence stood up to George Jefferson? The times she refused disrespect, pursued her dreams, showed her complexity? I don't need to watch every episode to understand the character, Sherri said defensively. Actually, you do, Marla shot back. Because what you're doing right now is what critics did back then. Reducing a groundbreaking character to the shallowest interpretation. You're doing to Florence what racist critics tried to do. Diminish her into a stereotype. The accusation landed hard. Sherri stiffened. Don't you dare flip this on me. I'm asking legitimate questions about representation. That's not racist, that's being responsible. Responsible? Marla repeated. Is it responsible to tear down pioneering black actresses without doing your homework? To diminish characters that meant everything to millions of viewers? I'm not tearing anything down, Sherri insisted. I'm having an honest conversation about how these shows look now. No, Marla countered, her voice firm. Conversations require listening and context. You're lecturing me about my own career without understanding it. The audience was riveted. Some nodded with Marla. Others seemed sympathetic to Sherri's generational perspective. My point is, Sherri said, her voice rising, sometimes our ancestors had to take roles that weren't perfect. We have to be honest about the compromises. Ancestors? Marla's voice went dangerously quiet. Sherri, I'm sitting right here. I'm not a relic. I'm a living person who made choices in my time, choices that opened doors for you. I never said you were a relic, Sherri backtracked. You didn't have to, Marla replied. This whole approach treats my work like it's something embarrassing to be explained away. Well, I'm not apologizing. I'm proud of Florence and Mary Jenkins. And what exactly did they represent? Sherri asked. Marla looked straight into the camera. They represented women who refused to be invisible. Intelligence wrapped in humor. Dignity in the face of dismissal. They proved that working people, black women, domestic workers, all deserve to be seen as full human beings. But they were still in service positions, Sherri pressed. And what's wrong with service? Marla demanded, her voice rising. What's wrong with honest work? My mother was a domestic worker. Are you suggesting her life didn't matter because of her job? The personal revelation stunned the studio into silence. That's not what I'm saying, Sherri whispered. Then what are you saying? Marla fired back. Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you think working-class lives are beneath representation. Florence fought that every episode. I'm not ashamed of working people, Sherri said quickly. I'm questioning whether those roles served us well. Florence and Mary Jenkins were beloved, Marla countered. Our community saw themselves in them. They laughed with them, found strength in them. Who are you speaking for when you dismiss that connection? I'm speaking for people who felt limited by those images, Sherri replied. And I'm speaking for millions who felt seen for the first time, Marla said. Domestic workers who saw Florence was smarter than her boss. Mothers who saw Mary juggling family and dreams. Women who recognized their strength in these characters. Don't you think we deserved more complex roles? Sherri asked. Of course we did, Marla replied. And we fought for more every day. But what we didn't do was tear down the progress we were making while we fought. What you're doing right now is suggesting my life's work was harmful. That's not honest, that's erasure. I just think we need honest conversations, Sherri said. Then be honest, Marla said, her voice like steel. This isn't a conversation. This is a trial and you've already decided I'm guilty. What's not fair is inviting me here under the pretense of celebrating my career, then ambushing me with accusations, reducing decades of want diminished.